Hey guys, Sean here and welcome to the F1 Word. Now, go back to last February and I was pretty sceptical about McLaren and their chances in 2019, I'll freely admit that. I don't know why, I guess I just kind of learnt not to get my hopes up. However, for the first time in a while, they were actually talking down their chances in the winter, and they weren't aiming all that high. And when I look at that with the benefit of hindsight, I think that probably shows just how confident they were in this year's car, and they were right to be. At the end of the day, they didn't need to overhype it all and could do all their talking on track, and wow, didn't they just. What a season. Honestly, and feel free to let me know in the comment section if you were somebody who did believe in them, but how many of you actually believed that McLaren could top that midfield fairly comfortably in the end and pick up a podium as well? I don't think there were many that did. I know for a fact, as I've already kind of said, I certainly did not. It must be said, though, it was a very inconsistent start to the season for them, with just 1 point finish in the first 3 races and 4 in the first 7. So it was a little bit of a rocky start for them. After that, though, they only failed to score at 2 of the remaining 14 races, and that helped them to pick up a total of 145 points and saw them beat their power unit supplier, finishing well clear of Renault come Abu Dhabi. 54 points, in fact. I honestly can't get over just how good this year has been. And I've got to say as well, as much as I've criticised him in the past, Zak Brown has done a very good job at getting all of the right people in the right places. And for the first time in what feels like a very long time, McLaren look like a coherent team again. And that's not to mention the fact that the car looked extremely good out on track, and they managed to get the most out of that improved power unit that I talked about in the Renault video last week. Carlos Sainz has been absolutely bloody brilliant. I can't put it any other way. And yeah, okay, we can be boring and say that perhaps he wouldn't have ended up 6th in the championship had Red Bull stuck with Gasly or taken Albon from the start of the year. Of course, we'll never know that for sure. But even if you were to take that into account for whatever reason, he would still have pretty comfortably topped the midfield either way, even if it was 7th place. I sold Carlos massively short last winter, I really did. And I will quite happily sit here now and hold my hands up and admit that I was completely wrong to doubt that he has what it takes to fight with some of the best in Formula 1. He has been hugely consistent all year, and when you look through his results, he spent much of the year picking up the 5th and 6th places that we expected Gasly to be grabbing as Red Bull's number 2. Perhaps this is a conversation for another day, but is Carlos Sainz the one that got away for Red Bull? When you look at his results, maybe they should have taken him. Anyway, that's pretty irrelevant at the moment because he is at McLaren and has been superb. And you know, I also really do believe that it's no coincidence that the year he finally gets a long-ish term deal, he delivers. 2019 was the first time in a while that he didn't have to keep dealing with speculation about his immediate future, and so was able to just get his head down and get on with driving without having to worry about where he might be in next year's driver market. Maybe I do overstate the impact that has on a driver, but surely it's got to have an effect to a point. Looking at some stats then in the teammate battles, he lost a quali 1 in Abu Dhabi with Lando Norris making it 11-10 in his favour, but he did come out on top in the races winning that 14-6 and of course outscored Lando 96 points to 49. I would also like to add, I don't know why I'm saying it like that because it's my video and I'll add what I want, but anyway, it could have been an even better season for him had he not had those reliability problems at the start of the year with the DNF thanks to that power unit issue in Australia. I mean, I say issue, the car was on fire, but also that DNF as a result of a gearbox problem in Bahrain. Throw into that his loose wheel in Italy and that power unit issue in Belgium, and he could well have been even further clear of that midfield. I don't think this is a controversial opinion, but despite a strong year all round, undoubtedly the biggest highlight of Carlos's season has got to be that podium in Brazil. Having started in 20th place, he fought so hard in the latter stages of that race to fend off Kimi Raikkonen, and ultimately keeping him behind and being there to take advantage of Lewis Hamilton's penalty meant that he was able to take his first career podium and McLaren's first since 2014. I do still think it's a shame he didn't get to stand up there for the ceremony proper, but seeing the whole team up there after the penalties were applied was so good to see and kind of fitting as well. Ultimately, though, I only have good things to say about Sainz this year, and I do genuinely believe that he's put himself on the radar of the top 3 teams. Although, having said that, if he can get anywhere near the levels he has this year in 2020, McLaren are going to be pretty desperate to keep hold of him. As for Lando Norris, I think he's had an excellent rookie year. I've seen some criticism of him, with a few people claiming that he's been poor due to the fact he was well beaten by Sainz, which there's no denying he has been, but come on, really. He's had the lion's share of bad luck at McLaren this year, and he's also had to suffer some pretty shocking strategy calls as well as some mistakes in the pit stops to stack on top of all of that. Add to that the fact that he is in his first season in F1 and Carlos has been around since 2015, and I think it's ridiculous to criticise him for losing out to Sainz. Absolutely, the first measure of any driver is their teammate. They have equal machinery, and so the comparison is obvious. But again, it's his first season, and taking that and all of those issues into account, I think he's been extremely good. Of course, if this was his third or fourth season, then yeah, criticise away. But not his rookie year against a far more experienced teammate. And yeah, I'm first to admit there is plenty of room for improvement, but he's shown that he isn't afraid to go wheel to wheel with the best. Look at the early stages of the Austrian Grand Prix as an example. And even with the team mistakes and reliability that have gone against him, he has more than a few times retired from decent positions, which goes some of the way to explaining why the points deficit was so big. A prime example of that is at Spa, where he was within a lap of taking 5th place only to retire thanks to a loss of power as he went across the line. And don't forget as well, as I've already gone over, he beat his far more experienced teammate in quali, and the average gap between them was, according to racefans.net anyway, half a second in Norris's favour. So no, he hasn't had a bad season in any way, shape or form. I know this bit isn't something that everyone cares about, but Lando has also been a breath of fresh air away from the track. Actually, you know, both drivers have. I get so bored of the usual PR spiel that we get pre and post race weekend. It is just so nice to have a couple of drivers who are happy and free to say what the hell they want, well, within reason, obviously. And to be fair, I feel like that's something that we're going to see a lot more of from the next generation. Anyway, the point is, I've just been surprised by his attitude on the whole. Like Sainz, if I go back to the winter, I have my reservations about Norris. My biggest concern being that I felt that it was perhaps a little bit too early for him, maybe a year too early. And a second year in F2 would have given him a bit more experience and a chance to learn away from the spotlight. And you know, I still don't think taking another year in F2 would have been a bad thing for him, but he has shown that he absolutely deserves his place on the Formula 1 grid, and he's been able to develop and to grow despite being in that spotlight and under what must be some pretty big pressure. And I don't mean necessarily from McLaren, but I'm sure you're all very well aware of how the British press can get. Overall though, McLaren have had an absolutely fantastic year. They've been so good, and I've got to say it is so nice to be able to talk positively about them for a change. And also, they were the biggest surprise for me in 2019. I think Carlos Sainz will be up there as well, but when it comes to the drivers, there could well be other candidates in that one. Personally, I am just so happy to see McLaren so much closer to the sharp end of the grid. Alright, they've still got a long way to go to get back to their title-winning years, but when you consider where they have been recently, and I'm not just talking about the Honda years, 2019 was a massive step in the right direction, and everybody at that team should be very proud of what they've achieved this year. Absolutely incredible. What a turnaround. That is it then for this video, but don't forget you can let me know your thoughts on McLaren's season down in the comments section, and also how do you feel Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris have done in 2019. Now, I will be back soon with more content as ever, but in the meantime, don't forget that you can of course follow me over on social media, and all of the links you need for that are in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.